It's also interesting to sort of see maybe a moment where the Fed steps a little bit out of this very harsh spotlight. It feels like it's been in for this entire year, and certainly what a difference from a year ago, as you alluded to. What does that mean for investors maybe in the short and midterm if the Fed is not as big of a concern?
Well, I think they really do want to be on the sidelines. They don't want to be part of election year politics. That said, I think some of the points that Jeff made earlier about the Fed wanting an overshoot on inflation, they're really setting the stage, even though it's not in their dot plots that, Chairman Powell is pretty clear to say don't look too much at those because they're out of context. But the idea is that he is more dovish than what we were seeing out there. And I think the idea that there's more slack in the labor market and he would really need to see wages with a little heat in them to really feel like the labor market was hot. Those are suggesting that the Fed actually has a much lower threshold to cut rates than raise rates. And I think we still will see an additional rate cut, at least one next year, if not more than that. And that's something that the Fed doesn't want to say up front, but I think Chairman Powell is more than ready to do, and he's been able to get the votes even when it was tight.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you about. So you expect potentially one more rate cut in 2020. Is recession at all on your radar, Diane?
Well, it's still on my radar because we still don't know exactly what's going to happen and how long we'll hit the pause button on trade. If we can hit the pause button on trade and roll back some of these tariffs, we can certainly do well and continue through 2020 without a recession. If we were to see some kind of a reaction function in a few months where all of a sudden the delay in tariffs were taken back and we were seeing an escalation in trade again with China, that would change the equation and up the ante on risks and trade on interests of a recession again. I think that is where we're at. The good news is we seem to be de-escalating at the moment, and that gets us a little wiggle room. But as Chairman Powell was very careful to point out, even with the USMCA getting passed, it doesn't lift the veil of uncertainty yet with China. And even then, we still have uncertainty if we keep the tariffs in place that we have in place. There still is uncertainty about what trade policy will be post-election 2020 year.